Hi, Facebook live stream listeners. We are so delighted to have you with us today. We're actually going to be recording. This is the backstage of Change It Up with Paula Shaw Radio. And we're going to be recording a little bit out of order today. Normally, those of you who have watched us before know that in the first segment, I always talk about some stuff dealing with who our guest is that day and the topic that we're looking at. But today we're going to record out of order. We're going to be talking about caring for the elderly. And my guest, the first guest today, is Jill Schwartz-King, who is right here with me. So we're going to be going right into what would normally be second segment, where I would be bringing Jill on, and we're going to talk about her business, ElderCare Concierge. So thank you for joining us, and in just a moment, we will be ready to go. So I'm just looking for to make sure Todd is ready for me to start. Let me just peek. Excuse me, guys. I have to make sure my sound engineer is ready. And by the way, I do also want to say that Jill and I are both getting over summer colds. So we're doing our best with our cough drops and trying to keep our voices moving without coughing. So bear with us. All right, thank you. Here we go. And welcome back to Change It Up with Paula Shaw Radio. As promised, I have in studio with me now Jill Schwartz-King, who is the owner and founder of ElderCare Concierge. So let me tell you a little bit about Jill. She's a native of La Jolla here in San Diego. She's been working in the healthcare field for decades, though you'd never know that to look at her. She looks 22.
Thank you.
She started at Mission Bay Hospital and St. Joseph's Hospital. She rose to the rank of VP at Eisenhower Medical Center. Her experience ranges from psychiatric care, skilled nursing facilities, home health care, hospice, and palliative care, and home care placement. Working in corporate health care, Jill realized that families need advocates. And after witnessing several painful events that could have been avoided if the family had advocates, she made an intentional decision to work directly with families to fill that gap. And she does that today through her business, ElderCare Concierge. And the website for that business, so that we don't forget to say this, is www.eldercare, ELDERCARE, dash concierge, CONCIERGE.com. And the tagline, Miss Jill?
Is plan tomorrow today. If you put plan tomorrow today, if you're looking for the website, it'll bring it right up if you put that after the .com.
Okay, fabulous. All right, Jill, this is a kind of a very unique business, isn't it? I mean, there's not like companies that provide elder care. You are doing something very unique with ElderCare Concierge, right?
Correct. There are companies who do a little bit of what I do, but they call it care management, or they went to advocacy certificate program and got their certificate. They just don't have the experience or the background that I have brought to the picture that comes from knowing what goes on behind the curtain in an acute care setting, a hospital setting, or a skilled nursing setting, or even when it comes to hospice or home care. So I've done kind of both sides, and I can help plan those next steps for a family. So basically, ElderCare Concierge, I'm kind of like a rent-a-daughter or the quarterback of the team.
Rent-a-daughter, I love that.
People will take instructions much easier from the person they've hired versus one of their children. And we sometimes find that out. It's a little too late. We get ourselves into a crisis, and that's usually when I get called in, is when we get a little overwhelmed, or we've had that revolving door going back into the emergency room several times.
So do you work just in the medical setting with helping families, or do you work in the whole picture of what's going on with elder care?
I actually work with families on the financial side, the legal side, and the healthcare side. I'm not the professional in the legal side, and I'm not the professional in the financial side. However, I do pull those people in when necessary. If somebody doesn't have an estate plan and we're at the hospital and we're having a really tense moment, I can get an estate planning attorney to come to the hospital, create a mini estate plan so that we can actually help the person's loved one. There's things we can't do without certain legal things in place. Advance directive for one. When it comes to their finances, again, back to the estate planning or the financial counselor kind of can come in and help, or a fiduciary, help them with their bills, help them kind of understand how much can we afford and what are we doing going forward so that we don't find ourselves stuck in a crisis again.
One of the things I think so valuable about what you do is, even though I know you and I know you have a big
Sure.
heart, so you care about your clients,
Thank you.
but you're not caught up in the same kind of emotional picture the family is.
Correct. I am I come in and basically take the psychosocial piece down to a level that's bearable for everybody, because everybody's kind of positioning with their agenda. When it comes to being afraid about mom or dad or putting them in a skilled facility or a memory care facility. So I kind of help calm all that down, do a plan of care, really what basic steps are, next step, and keep everybody informed and on the same page. And that actually has been incredibly helpful as I continue to do that going forward. I meet with the family members individually so I can get their download, because everybody has a different perspective. And one of the best parts of what I do is go to the doctor's appointments, be it a pain specialist, be it the oncologist, or the cardiologist. I go with the person and or with the family members who want to go, and then I take notes through the whole thing, and I ask all the questions that need to be asked that sometimes we get overwhelmed and forget to ask.
Yes.
And then, again, those are all written up as well, so I can send things to the rest of the family. So, again, keeping everybody on the same page, and then always kind of coaching the family on what my recommendation or suggestion is. It's always just a recommendation. However, again, knowing behind the curtain what's really going to go on people seem to really value that perspective.
And you have that perspective because of all these years that you've worked in healthcare. Is that
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. And, I just can't help but think about how important this role is, because you bring balance to the situation. And one thing I know after my 26 years of working with grieving people is that when people are sad, scared, anxious,
Sure.
they don't think clearly, they don't make real good decisions, and they can easily be overwhelmed. So to have you there, this calm, clear presence that's also informed and experienced, I think is huge.
Right. I look at it as similar to when we're looking at or anticipating divorce. It's everybody starts acting out. The psychosocial dynamics just become, no matter who is getting divorced. Once we make the decision to get a divorce, kind of everybody feels a little relief.
Yeah.
So even making the decision to hire me can be a little bit scary for folks. But once they do, families really feel relief with some great structure and great direction, versus feeling overwhelmed and something went wrong in the OR and we're trying to look for that smoking gun. Let me go through the chart. Let's go find out what really went on and ease everybody's mind. It really makes a big difference versus the stories we create in our minds.
Absolutely. So you can actually look at the charts and all that, and you know what you're looking at?
Absolutely. Make sure the meds that families don't want their loved ones having, they don't have, or let's say they're going to be discharged and they're not ready to be discharged. Well, we can appeal that discharge. We can get 3 or 4 more days so we can get our act together. Families just don't know the healthcare system well enough. I think there are so many secrets. How do you navigate that system to make it work best for that person who's in that situation? And all the way to the hospice, death and dying and palliative care. That's a huge passion of mine. And when it does come time for either one of those things. There are, 40 plus hospice companies in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you determine what's going to be the right fit for your mom, your dad, your whoever's in that chronic situation.
That is huge too. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is that it seems like most people sort of think the doctor is God, and the whole medical institution
Correct.
runs the show, and we just have to do what they say.
Correct.
And so what I love is you know the whole, as you put it, behind the curtain scene.
Correct.
These are just professional people, and you're not afraid to question something if it needs to be questioned.
Correct. A good example of that is putting your mom on a new medication, and then they discharge before 24 hours, and the mom isn't able to communicate or walk, and it's very different. So they haven't really observed that medication to see how that works with this person. So that is not a safe discharge. However, if nobody questions that kind of, they get transferred to the skilled nursing, they get transferred to the memory care. Are they ready for memory care? Let's make sure we're not putting dementia anywhere on that diagnosis unless we are diagnosed with dementia. Because once dementia is mentioned, it is very difficult to get into any certain level of care, certainly not independent with a dementia diagnosis at all on anywhere in a chart. So it kind of helps people, if I'm involved for 15 minutes in the beginning, or if I'm involved for hours or weeks and months at an hour here or there, it's depending on what's going on in their life. Sometimes I'm involved from the beginning of a transitional change, if it's a move, or I'm involved in the crisis sense. Sometimes I'm there to calm things down, get things going, and then I sometimes am no longer involved, and then I get re-involved 6 months later, depending on really, what's going on with that family. And that's not unusual.
And you know what, Jill, before we run out of time,
Yes.
although I'm going to have you back a little later again.
Thank you.
But I want you to give the website, and can people call you as well?
Absolutely.
Please give that information.
The website is www.ElderCare, one word, ELDERCARE, ElderCare-Concierge, CONCIERGE.com. And if you put Plan Tomorrow Today, which is my tagline, that will bring that website right up so you can read all the many services that I offer and provide. And I do have my phone number, which I'll give out, is 619-778-0310, 619-778-0310. I am out of Rancho Santa Fe, but I go everywhere in San Diego, and I don't turn anybody away.
Oh, wonderful. I am so glad that we've had some time, and we will be bringing Jill back a little later with Jade Craigwell, who is coming up in our next segment. So we'll be right back.
Thank you. Really?
Well done, girl.
But
Well done.
my stuff was like all over the board.
Oh, no. Well, I think you gave people a really good understanding of what you do. And that's the whole point. Because I think a lot of people don't realize this kind of care is even available. Let me go see if Jade's out there.
That's funny.
And
You think it really went okay?
I do. Honey, I think you're going to be very pleased.
Really?
What do you think, Facebook live stream listeners? Did Jill do okay? Put it in the whatever that is, the message bar.
That's funny.
Yeah, is she here? Okay, good. All right, Jill, so I'm going to move you to that
Cool.
chair over
Cool.
there. And we will bring her in. And by the way, I will say this at the end of the show. Your information will also be in the show notes on the website
need
and
one of
all
those?
of that.
This is accurate.
Yes. Thank you.
But what you have isn't just making sure.
Oh, she's not? Oh. Well, dear. Yeah. Good idea. Thank you, Todd. Well, my other guest is not yet here, so we are now going to go back and do the beginning of the show. All right. Let me find that. All right. Now, Facebook live streamers, we are doing the beginning of the show. This is a crazy day here at Change It Up. We're changing it up at Change It Up Radio. Okay. Here we go. And welcome to Change It Up with Paula Shaw Radio. Thank you for joining me. I am so delighted you're here today because we're going to be talking elderly. This show is all about change. This show is all about helping men and women either work through change in a more productive, positive way. As a life transitions expert in my private practice, I'm all about helping people work through those unexpected changes that come up in life that can be so difficult. That might be a death. It might be a divorce. It might be a health challenge. There's so many changes. Sometimes we move, and even though we're moving to something that we think would be better, there's still all the discomfort with the unfamiliar that comes up when we're dealing with change. And yet, change is so critical, and it's really one of the most wonderful parts of life, because without it, we would all get bored, and we wouldn't grow, and there wouldn't be the opportunity to experience new things. So we got to have change. And so one of my goals with this show is just helping people develop a better relationship with change. So today we're going to be talking about the elderly. And we have got a hugely growing elderly population. As you all know, the boomers are getting to that age, and we have a lot of baby boomers in this country. Let me share a few statistics with you about people that we would call the elderly. So the number of Americans ages 65 and older is projected to more than double from 46 million today to over 98 million by 2060. And the 65 and older group's share of the total population will then rise to nearly 24% from 15%. Obesity rates among older people have been increasing, standing at about 40% of 65 to 74-year-olds in 2009 to 2012. So obesity rates are on the rise in this group. More older adults in this age range are divorced compared with previous generations. And the share of divorced women ages 65 and older increased from 3% in 1980 to 13% in 2015. And for men, from 4% in 1980 to 11% during the same period. More than 1/4, 27% of women ages 65 to 74 lived alone in 2014, and this share jumps to 42% among women 75 to 84, and then to 56% among women ages 85 and older. So women are living longer, and they are more of them are living alone. So the demand for elder care is also being fueled by a steep rise in the number of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, which could nearly triple by 2050 to 14 million from 5 million in 2013. Also, we all know that the large share of elderly also means, this large amount of elderly people, that Social Security and Medicare expenditures will increase from a combined 8% of gross domestic product today to 12% by 2050. So bottom line, we have a lot of people in our population that are in those older age ranges. And because healthcare has come a long way, nutrition, people know more about how to live better and live longer, we have people that are living a lot longer than they ever did before. But as a life transitions therapist and author of a grief book called Grief, When Will This Pain Ever End? I think a lot about loss and what kinds of losses people are looking at as they grow older in this population. So let's look at some of those losses right now. People 65 and older, we normally think of people as retiring around 65, though that too is changing. Many people are working much longer than that because they love their work and they have satisfying careers. But when one does enter that phase of life called retirement, we have many losses, although many people look forward to their retirement and they can't wait till they don't have to work anymore. Retirement brings a lot of loss with it. First of all, there's the loss of the career identity. You no longer have that title that you used to have as to who you are out there in the world. The CEO of, or a therapist who, or, the owner of. Those things can be a big loss for people, especially if they haven't done a lot of their own personal work so that they know who they are from the inside out. Many people have that sense of identity and importance based on their job title. When that goes away, that's a difficult shift, a very difficult change to deal with. There's the loss of the daily routine and the structure in your life that is there when you're engaged in the workforce. And for many people, that's tough. I was just talking to a woman who's retired yesterday, and she was saying, I feel like now that I'm retired, I'm just getting better and better at procrastinating. More and more days, I feel like I don't accomplish anything. So one of my suggestions is, even in retirement, have some structure in your week. Certainly you can have days that you want to just leave open and loose, and you've earned the right to do that. But have some structure. Have certain activities that you go to, whether it's your yoga class, your tennis match, your card group, or your book club. Whatever it is that you enjoy, be sure that that gives some routine and structure to your day. I also think it's very important for people to add to that daily routine some kind of physical movement, whether it's a walk or whether it's a trip to the gym. We need to keep our bodies moving. Some kind of spiritual time, whether that's meditation or prayer or just quiet contemplative time, that's really helpful and important for us too. Another one of the losses that can be difficult for people is the loss of the friends that they had in their work circumstance, whether they were the people in the office or the people that they interacted with as clients. This can be a very difficult loss for people. And social isolation is a real problem among the elderly in our society. We've talked about that on other shows, but I just want to touch on it briefly, that we humans are designed to have our brains stimulated by conversation, by visual cues that we get from other people's facial expressions and body language. We are social animals, and we need that interaction. So if you're not interacting with the people at the workplace anymore, develop some kinds of groups. Meetup groups are fabulous. There's so many different kinds of them. Maybe you get together with the girls and play cards or talk about a book or take a walk. I love it when I see groups of people out walking or jogging together. These kinds of things give us the social interaction as well as physical interaction, so they're extremely valuable. The loss of a sense of purpose can be a real problem for people when they give up their careers, because maybe they were doing something they felt was really meaningful, a real contribution to people and to the world, and now that's gone. So again, I think it's critically important that we replace that with something else that gives us a sense of meaning. Maybe now that you don't have to work, you can volunteer for that nonprofit or that group you've always been passionate about, that you always wanted to help. So again, the sense of purpose, the sense of meaning in life is critical to keep alive. And finally, we need to look at the loss of dreams. As people get into their later years, sometimes they get very nostalgic about what they dreamed their life was going to be when they were young. And they may feel really good about what their life was and realize that usually what we plan never happens. I think there's an old joke, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. So we have to remember that usually life is what happens when we're on the way to our goals. And if we can accept what comes along and love it and work with it, then it all turns out better in the long run. So I think the dreams that we have are important because they fuel our energy, but we don't want to use them to fill our life with regret at the end. I think acceptance of what is a critical piece in being happy and joyful and feeling fulfilled in life. And coming up in my next segment is somebody who works to help people when they're dealing with those difficult times in life, whether it's a health problem or needing to move to a new kind of place where there's more care or more available to them at a certain age. We need an advocate. You know, we need somebody who, she jokingly refers to herself as a rent-a-daughter. Jill Schwartz-King is going to be talking to us in the next segment about her business, ElderCare Concierge. And I can't wait to share her and what she's doing with all of you. We will be back with Jill in just a moment. Okay. Let's see if we have. Yeah, Jill may be my host. Yeah, okay. Okay, Facebook Live streamers. We do now have Jade Craigwell. Yeah, but I never can see those, unfortunately. It would be. It's on the final. Yeah, I can look at it. Okay, here's Jade's bio. And some questions. Oh, is it? Oh, was she caught in traffic or something? There she is. Hello, Jade. Come right on into this seat. Oh,
sorry, just twisted
sorry.
Okay, so there's no TV on right now, right?
Yes, Facebook Live is on. So say hello.
I was watching something and people are seeing me limping.
Okay, fabulous. So, Jade, I was
sorry,
just...
I didn't know that. You should have told me that.
Facebook Live streamers, I introduced Jade Craigwell, and she's going to talk to... Oops. Let me try that again. If you're not talking in this mic, they don't hear you.
Okay.
Facebook Live streamers, I want to introduce Jade Craigwell, who's going to be my next guest, and she's going to be talking to us about making pre-need arrangements. Is that right terminology?
Right, cemetery and funeral arrangements ahead of time.
Perfect. All right, so we are about to start this segment, and we'll be just a moment. Would you like, oh, you've got water. Is that your water?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
May I get a sip?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Mm. And you know what we didn't do? Let's do right now that Jade's here. Facebook Live streamers, some of you know that we always set an intention for the show before we start recording because, you know, we want to tell the energy where we want it to go. So Jade and Jill, why don't you come over here for a minute, Jill? All right. So let's just hook up. All right. So we set intentions so that we can let the energy know how we want it to show up, because quantum physics has taught us that energy always shows up in accordance with the expectation of the observers. So we set the intention that this show is going to go out there to help millions of people who need this information that these two wonderful ladies bring. We set the intention that we'll just be calm and clear, and that our minds will be sharp and our words will flow easily for the highest good of all. And would anybody want to add anything to that?
Amen.
Sounds great. All right.
Thank
you. All right, Ms. Jade. So we do segments that are 11 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay.
So I'm going to set this clock, and then we're
Okay.
going to start. I'm going
Does this need to stay right here?
You need to be talking
Okay.
like
This.
right into it.
Okay.
Yes. So if you're looking at me, you can have it like this, but just be sure that you don't look totally away and the mic's over here.
Okay.
And it'll move, so you can
Okay.
put it wherever you're
Okay.
comfortable with.
Okay.
Okay? Whoops. Okay. Let me grab my glasses. Okay. And welcome back to Change It Up Radio with Paula Shaw. And in this show, by the way, is being brought to you by Tom Palladino's Scalar Energy Healing. And he is offering a 15-day free trial of this amazing cutting-edge healing therapy. And if you'd like to take advantage of that, and by the way, I am, and so is all my family and everybody I know, just go to freescalar.net. That's freescalar.net. All righty. In this segment, we are going to be talking to Jade Craigwell. And let me tell you just a little bit about her. She was born in Massachusetts because her father was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. So you know what that means. They moved around a lot of places while she was growing up. She especially enjoyed her years spent in Japan and Hawaii because of the people and their customs. She has been helping people take care of their cemetery and funeral needs ahead of time for over 20 years. In the past, she also helped people make arrangements for their loved ones at the time of the loved one's passing. She works for Dignity Memorial. Is that and is based at El Camino Memorial Park.
In Sorrento Valley.
In Sorrento Valley.
Right.
All right. For fun, she enjoys doing things that are really pretty interesting here. She's gone dog sledding. She's into genealogy and also done some hand gliding in Mexico. All right. So please let me welcome Jade Craigwell. Hi,
Thank you.
Jade.
Hi, how are you?
I am just great, and I'm so delighted to have you here because we've been talking with Jill Schwartz-King about her business, ElderCare Concierge, where she is helping older people who are going through life transitions that are difficult to deal with them. She's an advocate, or a rent-a-daughter, as we like to call her. So your job now takes place when things are actually before we reach the final stages, correct?
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about pre-need care and why is it a good idea?
Well, I think many people might think that they have to wait until they're older to get started on their final arrangements, planning ahead, and that's not true. For one thing, we never know when we're going to pass.
Right.
We have no idea.
Right.
I could pass tonight. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because you're older, you're going to pass late,
That's
sooner.
a really good point. Because,
Right.
I hadn't thought of younger
Right.
people as working with you, but of course they
Right.
could.
Absolutely. That's the best time to get started when you're working. You can, you have that income coming in. You take care of it just like you take care of other things. You have wise people have trusts done. They plan ahead. They realize that, you know what, it is going to happen to me at one point.
That's right.
Our passing is not optional. And we can't just go, okay.
It's a very good
It's over
point.
with. We can't control it.
We have some choice about some things, but not
Right,
that.
but
right?
not that.
My mother-in-law used to say, there ain't none of us going to get out of here alive.
Right. So it's wise to take care of it ahead of time when we have all of our faculties, when we can talk with our family about it.
The emotions aren't high.
The emotions aren't high. You can make payments on it. But the most important reason is that you're not leaving that burden for your family.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it ahead of time, you are leaving that burden for your family. You really are. There's just no way around it, you know. And I wish people could see what I've seen with the families that have come into the office when there was nothing done ahead of time. And, you have to keep in mind at that point, people are not like how we are right now. They're not laughing. They didn't get a good night's sleep. They haven't eaten well. Okay. No, they're grieving. They might have been up all night. They might not have been eating well.
Right.
And then they have to make all of these decisions instantly. Instantly.
It's horrible, isn't it?
And it's so hard. And they start bickering sometimes amongst the family over the least little thing. So when they've done it ahead of time, they're still grieving and they haven't eaten well and they haven't slept. But how do you think they feel in comparison when they think, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we planned ahead. We took care of it. They don't even have to look for their contracts because we have their contracts. They just call and make an appointment and then they come in. And then we're more or less reviewing things with them rather than starting from square one.
Oh, that's huge difference.
It's a huge difference. So you take care of it ahead of time and then you can cross it off your list, done, right? And then go on and play tennis.
Yeah. I love that idea, Jade. And in my work over the years with grieving people, I have certainly dealt with a lot of people grieving because of a death.
Yes.
And I was saying the same thing to Jill. People, when they are grieving, just aren't capable of thinking clearly, are not capable of making great decisions because you literally have a mind that's like filled with molasses.
Right.
You can't focus.
Right.
You're not present in the moment because you're present in the grief, right?
Exactly.
So you're either taking trips back to the past or maybe fearful ventures into the future, not knowing what's going to happen now. So it can be a very, very difficult time.
It is. It really, really is.
So what kinds of things do they actually plan for with you? I mean, do they actually talk about, okay, I would imagine cremation versus being buried. And then what else?
So if you can kind of keep in mind, there's two sides to the process. There's the mortuary side and the funeral side. Excuse me, the mortuary side or funeral side and the cemetery side.
Okay.
So the first question is, do they want to be cremated or would they like traditional burial? So that's the first question. And so I always start with that point, and then I show the family their options. I've got a golf cart. Well, it's not my golf cart, but we have a golf cart that I love to take people around in the park in. It's a beautiful park. I mean, when you walk, you go in, and there's two beautiful ponds and full, mature trees and so forth.
And what is the name of it again?
El Camino Memorial Park in Sorrento Valley.
Okay.
So it's right here at the Merge. I think it's the best park in San Diego. It really is. But we have so many options for people. We have private family mausoleums. We have gated estates. We've got, plots. We've got cremation boulders by a man-made stream, because families in San Diego or people in San Diego want options. Just like when they look for a home, everybody that buys a home, they don't want just 3 bedrooms, cookie cutter house, and that's it.
That's right.
They want choices.
Yes.
And everyone's different with what they want. So because I've had so much experience, it's easier for me to show them their options and listen to them and ask them the right questions so they can make the best decision for themselves and for their family.
And I can see how that ride on that golf cart would be so different done ahead than at the time of a death. I can't even imagine how painful it would be just trying to pick the right spot.
I know.
When you're deep in grief.
And can you imagine also, look at our weather today. Look at how hot it is.
Yes.
Can you imagine if you hadn't done anything and then you're outside trying to go around and pick something out and, or sometimes it's raining, So we have to think about that as well.
And do you also help them plan the actual funeral service itself?
So I do both. I help them plan it and pay for it ahead of time.
Oh, that's
They can make payments on it when they do it ahead of time. They can pay it in full. Oftentimes there's pre-need discounts on it, so it will cost you less. And you're locking the price in. You lock the price in. We're a business like any other business in San Diego, and prices go up. So as soon as you put a down payment on it and start making payments or pay it in full, that's locked in.
That's a huge piece that I didn't even think of. Because if you do this when you're young, when you're probably least likely to think you should do it, though, that you may be locking in a price that 40 or 50 years down the road would have quadrupled.
it's amazing. In what I've seen, the price increases from when I first started. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow. You've brought up so many things that I would not have thought of, Jade, and especially in relationship to young people. You know, like you're so right. The more organized we can get,
Right.
it's like buying insurance, right? We all know we need to do that, and we set the money aside and we do it. But I think so often people have that attitude, oh, the children will take care of it. Right? And then the poor children, they're having to clean out a house. They're having to deal with things they may have memories with, right? And they're having to make funeral arrangements.
Right.
So that's a lot of agony, a lot of stress, a lot of exacerbation of the grief that wouldn't necessarily have to happen.
Yes. If I may say something, because if I'm not honest, then I'm not really helping you, you know, make the right decisions for you, whatever it is, it doesn't matter to me what it is, just that you take care of it ahead of time. But when people, like if you were to tell me that I'm going to leave it for my kids, I'd like to respectfully ask you a question, if I may, Paula.
Sure.
That's great. Do the kids know that? Do your children know that? That you've decided that you don't want to select and pay for it ahead of time, and you want them to do it, to select and pay for it the day after you pass away.
Ooh,
it's like,
that's a great.
I mean,
you know, that
really
actually gave me chills.
I'm
Jane.
not trying to do that. I'm just trying to
No,
help
but
you,
that's
you know, because
very
that
important
is what it's
question.
like.
Yes,
that is what it's like.
And I bet you most people just assume, and I often end up the client that comes into my office is the kid who is left behind, who had to do all of that, and now they're wrestling with feelings with mom and dad. Listen, let's give our listeners your contact information before we come back for the next segment. What is it?
It's 844-523-5233. I always have to think about it.
And can you repeat that one?
It's right here on my pen. Can you see that? 844-523-5233. I've got so many numbers, and normally I give out my cell phone number, but because we're live, I'm not giving out my cell phone number. Don't take it personally.
All right. Not at all. Not
anyway,
at all. Thank you, Jade.
You're welcome.
We'll be back in just a moment with Jade and Jill. We'll be right back. Okay. So Facebook Live streamers, we are now going to do a little rearranging so that we can get both of these ladies over here. So hang with us. All right. So let me think how we want to do this. Todd thinks, you know what, I think I'm going to maybe put you two, well.
You know, I was always really good at musical chairs. Okay.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Good to meet you.
You met me at Rotary.
Okay.
And okay, now Jade, slide that black chair over.
Easy for you. Which way?
Toward you.
Okay.
Oh, good. This is easy. We're all in. Okay, perfect. Todd, do we need to do a mic check?
Where's Todd? I thought we were the only ones in the room. I know.
Well, let me grab. You know what, Jill? Maybe I'll put you here so I don't have to move all my stuff. And your blonde hair will stand out against that sign.
Fantastic.
Okay. So, Jill, we need to do here. Let's have this mic for you. And if you have it down like that, then we'll see your face, but we just want to get it close to your mouth.
Okay.
Jill, do a little talk into that mic, and I'll see if Charlie likes it. Go ahead.
Hello, hello. Hi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Todd? Okay, we're good. All right, everybody. We're good. Okay. I'm going to bring us back. And we're just going to see where we go with this. Thank you for your patience, Facebook live streamers. All right. Welcome back to Change It Up with Paula Shaw Radio. We are delighted to be talking today about better care for the elderly. And in studio with me today have been Jill Schwartz-King and Jade Craigwell. And this segment, we're going to get to have both of them at the same time so that we can continue talking about what is important for people at this point in life and what these two ladies do. If you're just joining us, Jill has a business called ElderCare Concierge, in which she becomes the advocate for a family who is dealing with either a health crisis or something going on with a family member. Maybe it's somebody who needs to move to a facility with greater care, that sort of thing. Jill becomes their advocate. She's the calm presence in the midst of this emotional time. And Jade Craigwell, who's also with us, she takes care of pre-need arrangements at El Camino Mortuary Cemetery.
Memorial Park.
Memorial Park.
In Sorrento Valley.
In Sorrento Valley. So, ladies, we have done some talking with both of you about your individual businesses and what you do. And I wonder if there are any tips you might want to give the families or things that you feel are particularly important for people who are elderly to either have taken care of or to know about, or anything that really comes to mind right away. Jill?
Well, first, I want to step back just a sec because we focus on the elderly. It's really the kids of the elderly who end up with all this responsibility. So the sandwich generation is really making these decisions. Hopefully, you do have an estate plan or you have an advance directive that speaks to what your wishes are.
Can you speak a little more about a directive? Because that's something that I wanted to. Can you pull that mic out just a little bit? There you go. Let's talk about advance directives. I think that's a really important piece.
An advance directive is actually something that's done by an estate planning attorney or your attorney, or you can go pull one off the internet. And it really goes through the wishes of the person that may be dealing with a chronic illness or a crisis.
Wishes in regards to what? Wishes in regards to what?
Wishes into, do they want to have life-sustaining measures? Do they want to, if they do code, if they do have a heart attack and they basically have died, do they want the paramedic or the physician or whoever, what setting they're in, to come in, do chest compressions and bring them back to life, even though that may not be what's going to be best for that person. If we really look at what happens with that, when we do code, that's pretty much a natural death. And folks that are in that situation to understand that would rather almost always have that versus have that paramedic or that physician do chest compressions on that person. Anybody over 65 and into their later years, we become incredibly brittle. So all we do is break the, we puncture the lungs, we break things, and we basically are worse off than we started. And even though on the television it does look pretty fantastic, but there's only 2% that really survive coming back from coding or having chest compression.
I had no idea.
So, talking about life-sustaining measures and what their wishes are when it comes to end of life or when they no longer can communicate what their wishes are, to have them in writing.
And does that also affect you, Jade? Do people have information in their advance directives about what they want as far as funeral or burial?
Well, it's important. An advanced health care directive is important primarily if there are no children, if someone's single. That's crucial, and for us, it's really best if they've done their pre-arrangements, and let's say they've done their pre-arrangements, and 40 years prior, maybe it's the neighbor down the street that's the closest to them at that point. So they don't know anything. The neighbor down the street doesn't know anything about what they've done.
Yeah.
So they call El Camino. We find their contracts. We show them the contracts about everything that's done. So we are their advocate because the deceased person is not there to speak for themselves, but because they've done their contract and they've, we've got their signature and they've already pre-selected, they've paid for everything. We speak for them. And sometimes even with the kids, sometimes there's, some challenges with the kids or the family and, oh no, I don't want this. And we just hold up their contract, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, this is what your mom or your dad paid for. This is what they wanted. This is what they signed for, So a lot of times that just puts, the whatever you want to say, that it eases all of that, the tension that's within the room because of that. So it's definitely a smart thing to do is to take care of it ahead of time.
Now, what you do, Jade, can be taken care of ahead of time.
Right.
But Jill, really, people are calling you in more in the moment of crisis, correct?
Unfortunately, people wait till crisis. So hence, plan tomorrow today is my tagline. Unfortunately, we're going to have to keep running that by families because even me as a daughter to an 86-year-old mom, we all think even if I'm not in the industry, we know what we're doing. We'll take care of our parent. No, I can do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can until you get in too deep, and then that's when I get the call from the financial planner, from the estate planning attorney, or from one of the kids themselves. It does become overwhelming, all the way to hospice care, to the end-of-life planning. Part of hospice is doing the end-of-life planning. Do they have their mortuary set up? Are they going to be buried? Are we going, all the different options that that Jade has spoke about. And I can only say I've had many family member pass away, and they are at El Camino and Memorial Park, and they do a fantastic job. From everything from a true burial to somebody who's been cremated, to the services they provide, to the little golf cart that my dad did his pre-planning. Little golf cart ride all the way around the
Your
park.
dad was one of the pre-planners.
Oh, I was on the golf cart too. He thought if they drove any faster, just leave them there right then. But that was very funny. But went through that whole process more than once. So I have to say you guys do a fantastic job, and I really value that work because I think the pre-planning does take so much pressure off the people that are in a crisis and can't think straight. And again, going back to if somebody is on hospice, a lot of those questions and the social worker involved with the hospice case make sure all those things and arrangements are done without having that family member having to do them themselves.
Yes.
All of a sudden when somebody passes. So thank you for what you do. And again, that's just promoting hospice. The earlier you can identify somebody that has 6 months or less to live. I mean, hospice is the biggest gift.
It
will
is.
give
Hospice is wonderful.
anybody. And I'm obviously passionate about hospice, but that is part of what I do as well. Put all those pieces together and put them in place. It helps.
And because of your vast experience with so many different areas of the whole medical picture or the health picture, really, you're pretty unique and invaluable.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And
you've got to have this woman.
Well, we're also dealing with folks who could be very young, but they have a chronic illness.
Yeah.
And that's a real challenging one to deal with. But it has to be, managed. And that whole plan of care has to be put into place so that people can feel that they know what that next step is, especially if we're doing that revolving door.
And what I find in my practice all the time is people who are steeped with regret that they allowed some kind of treatment to happen because the doctors told them this was what should be, and it didn't work out so well for their loved one, or it didn't help at all, and it's a huge expense. And so I think, having, again, I like to say that this cool, calm, educated, experienced presence that you bring to that situation, Jill, and that you bring to the pre-need situation here, makes a huge difference, because both of you are dealing with people at a time of life when thinking may be clouded by grief, by illness, by age, by a lot of things. And so I love this, what I've really learned today that I have to say I wasn't as aware of is get in there and make arrangements when you're young. Decide what you want to do so that you are not burdening your children or your loved ones with it.
I've already done that. Didn't want to burden my kids. And that's exactly your point. And I'm not just pushing Jade, I'm just saying excellent.
Oh,
excellent.
push Jade.
It's such a great service, and calling it pre-need makes it feel so much better.
Yes.
I really like that. I haven't heard that term before, so.
Nice. It is a nice term. So let me have both of you ladies give your contact information once again. Jill, first for ElderCare Concierge.
Website, www.eldercare, one word, ELDERCARE, dash, concierge, CONCIERGE.com. And if you do plan tomorrow today after that .com, it will pull my website right up. Phone number 619-778-0310. Thanks.
Beautiful. And Jade?
My number is 844-523-5233. I work by appointment only, so please give me a call, and I'd be happy to meet you. I also can help families at some of our other locations, but I am based at El Camino, so give me a call.
And that number one more time.
844-523-5233.
Beautiful. And I want to thank you both because you've enlightened us, I think, in huge ways about ways to make those transitions that happen later in life, those changes, those challenges, a little bit smoother. And helping people know that you don't necessarily have to do it all alone. Mm-hmm. You know, there are professionals like you that can help smooth the path as we deal with those end-of-life challenges. So thank you both so much. And thank you to our listeners. You can hear us here on KCBQ on Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock, AM 1170, The Answer. We're on all the major podcast platforms, including iHeartRadio and Blog Talk. And if you can't remember any of those things, just ask Alexa. Also, please check us out on our Change It Up Radio Facebook page and our Change It Up Radio Instagram page. And we look forward to having you here with us again next week on Change It Up with Paula Shaw Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, ladies. All right, that's a wrap.
Okay. That's what I was going to say. That's a wrap.
Oh, yeah. So Facebook live stream listeners, here are my lovely ladies. Be sure you get their information. And, that won't work. I always forget this part. Facebook live stream listeners, thanks for joining us. And be sure you get the contact info for these ladies. And if you, for some reason, missed it, it'll be in the show notes on changeitupradio.com. All righty. Talk to you soon. All right. Let me post this. And then do you guys want to do some pictures?
Yes, that would be great.